Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Bhagavad Gita series. We are entering chapter 14, a very, I would say, chapter filled with a lot of wonderful knowledge and insights. So let's get started. And so that we can understand the Bhagavad Gita nicely, let us recite Mangalacharan nicely. If we recite Mangalacharan nicely, then we will understand Bhagavad Gita nicely. Okay. Om Jnanitimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutah Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Namah Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All right. Share the slides. So we are going to begin chapter 14 of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So, first of all, please have your Bhagavad Gitas in front of you. This is an older copy or printing, but the newer printings come with a yellow cover. So, anyway, the inside content is exactly the same. So, this chapter is called The Three Modes of Material Nature. So, mode of material nature is called guna, and I'll explain all of this in detail. Traya Vibhaga Yoga. So the three divisions or the three separate modes of material nature and the yoga of these three material modes. Basically, how do these modes act? The three modes act. So we will, how the three gunas act separately. Traya Guna Vibhaga Yoga. So we will cover the topic in great detail. So let's cover the essence of chapter 14 first. So this chapter is an extremely interesting chapter because we will understand how the world works. Many people want to understand how the world works. So this chapter is all about world. That's the material nature, World is nothing but material nature, world or the universe or whatever. So the previous chapters, largely, if you just think about it, chapter 2 starts with jiva. So have dealt in great detail with the topics of jiva. Then karma, or the entire karma, jnana, dhyana, that whole spectrum all the way goes till chapter 6. And then the topic of Bhagawan begins right away in chapter 7 onwards. And of course, how the jiva, his relationship with Bhagawan is also dealt with in great detail through all these chapters. There is some discussion about material nature. The Sanskrit word for material nature, what is material nature? Everything that we see around us is material nature. I have this cup here, so that's material nature. I have my phone here, that's part of material nature. My body, made up of bones and flesh and blood, is material nature. But we did not talk about all that so far. But we did talk about one aspect of material nature in great detail, which is the mind. So, and controlling the mind, and mind is one of the most important products or manifestations of material nature, as we will see. So we did talk about that, but we did not talk about the external material nature. Mind is something that we control, and who are the we? The jiva? Not really. The jiva doesn't, in most of our cases, we cannot control the mind. But still, mind is ours, we can say. The external universe, like this phone, it's part of material nature, this cup. My body, I cannot control my body in the sense that it grows old. I cannot control it. I cannot become younger. If I get hurt, there is pain. I cannot control it, I just have to wait. I can take some medication, that's fine, but I cannot just wish that the pain goes away. In the same way that, you can probably wish to control your mind, that by practice of controlling the mind gets controlled. You can begin to think. If I ask you to think about God or Krishna right now, you can possibly think of Krishna. So in that sense, this external, the gross material world is not completely in our control. So we will have that discussion has not happened yet in detail in the Bhagavad Gita. And this chapter 14 is the discussion about material nature or prakriti. So chapter 14 describes material nature or prakriti, or what we call as nature. One of the most famous science magazines is called Nature. Everything that is to deal with material nature in its most fundamental state. Okay. So as we all, I'm sure there are many students of science here. When we deal with material nature, or when we want to study material nature, we don't study macro objects. If you want to study physics, you don't study boxes and sticks. Okay, if you want to study physics, and I have a little, steel knife here to open some boxes and packages. I don't study the knife. It's made of steel. I study steel. Okay, metallurgists study steel. Then further, chemists will study the properties of steel, how it interacts with other alloys or elements. And then physicists would study atoms and subatomic particles, neutrons and protons and electrons. And further refined, you try to go deeper and see what constitutes neutrons and protons. And then you come into the standard model of physics, the quarks and all the other aspects of the standard model. There are, leptons and bosons and all those fundamental particles. My point is, when we want to understand the material nature, and this is all about understanding of material nature, we want to study the fundamental particles at its most basic level. And then, string theory, again, it's probably dead. We never know. It might revive. And so the fundamental particles, so to say, and the laws that govern them. Just studying the particles is no good. You need to know the laws that govern the particles, and therefore how those particles behave, so that you can predict the behavior of those particles, and that is given by the laws that they are governed by. So there is Newton's laws. I mean, not mechanics, that's kind of superseded, but Newton's law of gravity is still very well established. And of course, it's also superseded by general relativity. Let's just assume that, so there is general relativity or gravity, there is quantum theory. So these are the laws that govern the subatomic or the most fundamental particles. So when we study this, we say we understand material nature. So I think there is no dispute about this approach. And guess what? Bhagavad Gita adopts the same approach. Well, we can say physicists adopt the same approach as the Bhagavad Gita. Or it's just natural. It's just plain natural. Okay. So this chapter 14 is going into that area. And of course, chapter 14 will not talk about Newton's laws or general relativity or the standard model or protons and electrons. It will talk about something far more fundamental. And science today has not reached that level. So the three fundamental, I'll just say it for the sake of saying it, the three most fundamental particles, since I have mentioned here fundamental particles, there are three most fundamental particles called as the three gunas. And that's what this chapter is about. So till some time in science, there were three fundamental particles: protons, electrons, and neutrons. Then further, they saw that, those themselves can be broken down into quarks and so on. Electron was a fundamental particle that cannot be broken down, but then there are the quarks, and then there are, photons and this and all kinds of things. I've forgotten all that. But Bhagavad Gita says there are these three, so to say, again, don't attach too much to this terminology, fundamental particles or gunas. They are Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So material nature at its most fundamental root. Someday, maybe, 500 years from now, maybe 50 years from now, maybe 5,000 years, I don't know. Some scientist might discover that there are these three fundamental, particles or wavelets, strings, who knows what will come up. But there are these three fundamental things, so to say, that make up material nature. So Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna said that there are these three fundamental constituents of material nature. So that is what I hope I've given that sort of understanding, which will make even the modern scientists, in some sense, get attuned to this chapter as to what this chapter is talking about. So this is, this is not ancient religious dogma. This could be science of 500 years into the future. Maybe, I don't know. So that is the essence or part of the essence of chapter 14. Another way to look at it, because Lord Krishna will begin to speak about this, and he will say, Param bhūyah pravakshyami. I'll get into that. Bhūyah means, what does bhūyah mean? That has been used again and again. What does bhūyah mean? I just said it.
Again.
Again, yes. So, bhūyah, it has been said, bhūyah has been said, bhūyah. Again and again, the word again has been used. So it's not different knowledge, but looking at it from a different angle. The same thing from a different angle. So in a different context. As to how, and this is now goes back to the other part of what I was talking about in the previous slide, that we have talked about jiva. I have called one. How does one get entangled, or how does the jiva get entangled in the material world? So we have talked about jiva, we talked about karma, we talked about Bhagawan. Now we are talking about prakriti. Remember, there are 5 main topics of Bhagavad Gita: jiva, Bhagawan, karma, kala, and what's the 5th one? Prakriti. So this topic, or this chapter, is really going deep into that 5th aspect of Bhagavad Gita, which is prakriti. And then jiva's interaction with prakriti. And what's the interaction? Mostly in another slide, I have it stated it differently. But mostly it is, how does jiva get entangled with prakriti? The other angle could be, how does the jiva get disentangled from prakriti? Once you know how it is entangled, it should be it should give some clues as to how do you disentangle it. Okay, there is in mathematics, there is a subject called knot theory. Now, knot, and again, I'm using this whole concept of knot theory, K-N-O-T, okay, knots, like gaant bandhna, okay, knots, because we are saying entangled. And another reason I'm bringing up knot is because, as I will say again, what is one of the meanings of guna? Anyone?
Rope.
Yeah, so the standard meaning of guna is quality, or his, attributes, gunas. Another meaning of guna is rope, which is more relevant to this chapter. And rope, what does a rope do? Typically, or what is a rope used for?
To bind something.
To tie something. And how do you tie something? By tying a knot. So in mathematics, to study knot theory, it's about how knots are tied, and there's a whole math behind it as to 2 types of knots, one that goes on top, one goes, you can characterize a knot with various attributes. But the whole point is, when you do experiments, this is one of those few math areas where you can do experiments. Experiments are mainly for physics and chemistry, but this is one of the, so you tie a knot, and then your job is to untie it. Okay, and if you know how to tie it, you go through the mathematical sequence and you just reverse the mathematical sequence. It looks till the last step that the knot is still tied. You can probably look up some YouTube videos about knot theory experiments by students. It will look still tied, but then the moment you pull the rope, you give it some like a jerk, a jhatka, it just becomes straight. It's untied. So that's the beauty. So the point is of this chapter is, it describes how the jiva gets entangled in the material world. That's the point. But why is it relevant? It's relevant because if you know how it gets entangled, you can also de-entangle yourself. Just like in the knot theory, if you know the forward sequence, you play the reverse sequence, and lo and behold, you get untied. This is covered in the 15th chapter as well, that when one knows how one is entangled, then you can de-entangle yourself by cutting these knots with the axe of knowledge. So again, in this case, you don't untie it, but again, you know what's tying you and what's the right instrument to cut it, and it's the axe of knowledge. We'll cover that in the 15th chapter, but very clearly the Bhagavad Gita talks about how to unentangle yourself from the knots of material nature, because one is currently entangled. So the word entangled, the Sanskrit word that we will study over and over and over again, is in this chapter. What would be a good substitute from the Bhagavad Gita directly? Anyone who has read or pre-read this? Nibadhnanti or nibadhati. One is baddha. Baddha means one is tied or entangled. Okay. Yeah. So how does one get entangled in the material world and stay entangled? And how do we stay entangled in this material world? You know, it seems like we have been here, and Bhagavad Gita says we have been here for almost forever. So how do we get to stay entangled? And being in the material world, if you can't get out, if you can't separate yourself from this entanglement, because if you're entangled, again, the goal is to get unentangled or come out of it. If you can't, if you cannot, then what's the best place to be? Or in other words, how to make a lemonade if you got a lemon? Okay. Or how to make the best of a bad deal. So how to operate in this material world, in this material nature, knowing that you are here. I'm here, I can see here, this is material nature, I have a material body. So knowing that once you are here, how to make the best use of it. So all of that is going to be covered here. So being in the material world, what's the best material platform to operate on? And finally, how to get out of it. Okay, so all this will be described or discussed in this chapter number 14. Okay, is that clear? So I'll give a summary. Again, the essence is continuing, but I'm sharing the entire summary of this chapter on this slide, in case, you know, some of you have to go and some of you fall asleep, or some of you don't join the next time, or whatever. So here's the essence of this chapter, or the summary of this chapter. First, Lord Krishna describes, and we try to understand what is material nature, how the universe works. Okay, the entire universe we're talking. What is material nature? You just can't say this body is material nature. Okay, if this body is material nature, then, you know, why do you need AC, air conditioner? What month is it? July. In many places of the world, it is terribly hot. You know, body hurts. If only the body is the material nature, why do you need something else? Why is it so hot and uncomfortable outside? I was once with a very, very sweet and senior devotee, and in summer, out and about, and we were like sweating like crazy. And he's a very advanced, very senior, very, very, very senior devotee. And as senior as it gets, like very realized. And then we entered the room which had AC. And his first sentence was, if there is Krishna anywhere, he is in the AC. So I was like, even a very advanced devotee, like I was thinking like he must not be feeling the heat, and it's just me, and he's above all this. But even he was feeling that heat, and then he was. So anyway, so we want to understand how come that the external heat is affecting us so much that we are not able to focus our mind. I mean, Sri Raghunatha Das Goswami was completely different. He was sitting at Radha Kund in intense heat and absorbed in the thoughts of Sri Radha and Krishna, to the extent that Srimati Radharani had to come and put her veil on top of him to protect him from the heat. And Sanatan Goswami was watching all this. He saw Srimati Radharani come and protect Raghunatha Das Goswami, and then he built a little hut for him. So, yes, Raghunath Das Goswami probably was not affected by the intense heat, but because he's unentangled, but we are entangled. So external things affect our internal state of being. So what is there in that external that is affecting our internal? Just like the summer season, it's external, it's out there, and it's affecting us so much that we cannot tolerate, we cannot think about anything else other than AC, air conditioner, right? So first, we want to understand what is material nature, and not just the external material nature limited to this earth planet. We want to go all the way to the whole universe, the entire creation itself. And then we will understand how we got bound. Okay? How exactly did we get bound in this? How we got entangled? Remember, if we can understand how we got entangled, we can de-entangle ourselves, potentially. By the way, that's just one access to de-entangle ourselves. Just knowing how we got entangled really does not guarantee that you will be able to de-entangle yourself. Okay? But it gives you, at least it clears one hurdle. Just like by knowing how you got fat because you ate too much of unhealthy kind of food and at the wrong time and this and that, you became fat. Okay, that can help you to become lean and thin or lose weight, but it doesn't guarantee that. You have to act on it. You have to stop doing certain things and so on. So, but at least it's a first hurdle removed. If you didn't even know the difference between high calorie and low calorie food, you think, okay, I'll eat one time a day. And that one time a day, you eat pakoras every day, deep fried pakoras. You're probably not going to lose weight. So not only you have to eat one time a day, you have to also change what you eat in that one time or whatever. I'm just giving an example. So it gives you the access. So we understand how we got bound and how we continue to stay bound. So that will be covered next, how we continue to stay bound. And then this chapter will tell us that from wherever we are, we must progress to the mode of goodness, the highest guna. So these three gunas are ranked from tamas at the lowest to rajas in the middle and to sattva in the highest or the best. So wherever one is, so one should also do some self-diagnosis as to where am I? Am I predominantly, we'll discuss all of this, predominantly in tamas or rajas or sattva. If you're in sattva, great, congratulations, you're already there. If not, then how do we progress to sattva guna? Okay, sattva guna is like, okay, we'll talk about it. So we progress to the mode of goodness or sattva guna. And most people, by the way, most people, 99.99% people in the world today, in the industrialized world, I'm not talking about, several thousand years ago or whatever history might have told about hunter-gatherers and so on and so forth, but in the modern industrialized world, most people are in the mode of passion or rajoguna. So that should give a clue to many people as to where we are. The goal is to move to sattva guna, which means that stay in the material world. Sattva guna is not equal to moksha, because sattva guna is a characteristic of the material world. So sattva guna does not mean, there is another term you might have heard called Shuddha sattva. Shuddha sattva is different. These are, even though the term sattva is there in both, Shuddha sattva means transcendental or spiritual. When we say sattva guna, it is still material. So one is still in the material world, but is living in sattva guna as in a sattvic way. Sattvic way means leading a regulated life with a higher purpose. That is sattvic. So one is not giving in. What is the main difference between rajas and sattva? A big difference. And you can apply this to pretty much anything that you do in your life or want to acquire in your life. Okay? It's a wonderful, I'm giving you, this is not said, well, this is said in the 18th chapter, but I'm bringing it here. It's a wonderful litmus test of how to go from rajas to sattva. Please make note of it. Write it down. Try to follow this principle. I find it hard to follow, but once I tell you, you'll know. Anything that gives you short-term happiness or pleasure, but long-term misery, is in the mode of passion. Anything that gives you short-term misery, but long-term happiness, is in the mode of sattva. Okay? This is a litmus test. Anything that you do. Now you can say it in many different ways, doing what is right and being in integrity. Those are just different ways or different contextual applications of this fundamental principle. Just to give you a reference, let me find it in, somebody can find this in chapter 18. One time I gave a whole class on just this one. What is poison in the beginning and nectar in the end is mode of goodness, something like that. Which verse is that? If you go to chapter 18 and search for poison, you'll find it. Yeah. When camera is looking at me, I can't find it. 37, yes, that one. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. That happiness, 38, 18.38, that happiness, which is derived from the contact of the senses with their objects and which appears as nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion. So that's the fundamental litmus test. And we are all behind some kind of happiness. Shri Priti Sandarbha says that happiness is the fundamental quest of a living entity, of all living entities, whether a human being or a dog or an insect. Everybody feels a sense of happiness. So that 18.37 and 38 are very fundamental verses. So, for some, higher purpose can mean long-term happiness. Those who, they say burn the midnight oil and study hard or work hard, reap the benefits later. But right now, it's pretty hard. It's so to say poison in the immediate horizon, but nectar in the long term. So that's the higher purpose and leading a regulated life now. So that's the sort of the fundamental litmus test for living a sattvic life. So we'll unpack that. And then, so after coming to the mode of goodness, or predominantly, most of it, where it is 70% of your life, 80% of life, or 80% of the situations, maybe you might slip sometimes, but by reducing those instances or number of times that you slip or you fail, and increasing the number of times you succeed in upholding that yardstick, the more you do that, the more you go into the mode of goodness or live a more and more sattvic life. And then when one reaches almost at the top, 99%, 99.99% limit of X tending to 100%. So as you tend to 100%, then one goes beyond these modes and goes to the mode of good, the spiritual direction. This is called guna ateeta, which means beyond. Ateeta means beyond, just kind of beyond the, it's like you go beyond the event horizon, if I may use a physics word, or go beyond the escape velocity. You completely become free from the entanglement of the modes and go in the spiritual direction. And what is that spiritual direction? The best, any spiritual direction, any of them, the Jnana Marga or the Bhakti Marga. These are the two fundamental paths. Both will, but as we have studied so many weeks and so many chapters we have been studying, the best is Bhakti Marga. So by adopting the best process, which is Bhakti Yoga. So this, in essence, is chapter 14 right in front of your eyes. Okay. Any questions? Please raise your hands and, you can ask questions. And there's some way, Zoom has changed the interface. There's a way to chat, okay? I have not disabled the chat. You can still send your questions by chat. And, but they have made it a little hidden or tricky, I think, from before. But anyway, you can find it. You're all very smart. Oops, why is that there? Okay, I'll just so now we go into line by line, verse by verse into 14th chapter. So that was sort of like an introduction for the first 40 or so minutes on the 14th chapter. So, text number 1. Param bhuyah pravakshami jnananam jnanamuttamam yajjatva munayah sarve param siddhim ito gata. Translation. So, Sri Bhagawan Uvacha. So, Bhagavan, so this chapter is not beginning with a question because it's a continuation. So, remember, here's the link between chapter 13 and chapter 14. This could very well be a Bhakti Shastri question in your exam. Okay. What's the link between 13 and 14? Anyway, no, that's too hard. So, anyway, the link is in chapter 13, Lord Krishna described 6 things. Who remembers those 6 things that Krishna described? 3 pairs.
Prakriti, Purush, Jnana, Geyam, and Kshetra, Kshetra.
Wonderful. And what is the common theme in all these 3, Prabhuji?
Matter and spirit.
Yes, one is matter, one is spirit. But a large part of the focus of 13th chapter, okay, again leaned towards which one? More on matter side or spirit side?
Spirit side.
Spirit side, on the Paramatma side. Okay, Jiva and Jivatma and Paramatma. So much of it again went back to the previous discussion, Jiva and Bhagawan. Paramatma is Bhagawan, Jiva is Jiva, so Jiva and Paramatma. Again, the other aspect of Kshetra, okay, and Jnana, and what's the other third one?
Prakriti.
Prakriti. There is Purusha, there is Gyeya, and there is, what's the other one? Kshetragya. They were discussed in more detail, but this was kind of not discussed. So in that sense, 14th chapter is a continuation of the 13th chapter, where now this matter side, Kshetra primarily, okay, is being discussed. And this is composed of the 3 gunas. So that is why Krishna is saying again, bhuyaha, because all this has been discussed in summary, and the interaction of jiva with prakriti has also been discussed, and how to get out has been discussed by bhakti yoga and all that. So all that is, so this is the same knowledge, but from a different angle or a different context. We should Lord Krishna says, Pravakshami Jnananam Jnanam Uttamam. So this is the topmost knowledge. So there are not multiple topmosts. Topmost can only be one. So it's the same knowledge, but being presented in a different way. And by taking shelter of this knowledge, so in the next verse, the word shelter comes, that idam jnanam upashritya, like ashraya. So taking ashraya, and what ashraya? That ashraya is, what is that ashraya? Is bhakti. That will be revealed in the very end of the chapter, but I am revealing it now. What will happen? And it is kind of revealed here that idam jnanam upashritya, that jnana which has been spoken so far. So what has been spoken so far in all the almost 6 previous chapters, and sprinkled across even the earlier chapters 2 to 6, but most directly from 7 to 12 and even in 13 is all bhakti. So idam jnanam upashritya, what will happen? One will, in the previous verse, Lord Krishna says, Param siddhim ito gataha. You will attain the Param siddhi, the topmost destination or the topmost result, siddhi. And what is that siddhi? In the next verse, he reveals, Mama sadharmyam agataha. that you will come to my nature. Now, come to my nature. Again, Bhagavad Gita is, Lord Krishna has made it such that it can be interpreted. I'm going a little deeper, okay, in this today's session, just because, you know, it's coming to my mind. The translation by Srila Prabhupada is that by becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. So there's a possibility for some people to say, you know, like taking the nature of Bhagawan. Of course, in Bhakti, there is Sarupya, Sarishti, and so on. But also, we must say, Mama Sadharmya could also mean taking my shelter. Because if you refer 18.66, which is the most important verse of the entire Bhagavad Gita, what does it say? Sarva dharman parityajya. And there it is said, by giving up or by relinquishing, abandoning all shelters. That dharma means all shelters. So, mama sadharmyam agata. Come to my shelter. So that could be the other understanding. So again, this is all referring to bhakti, which leads to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. So the second verse is idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha sarge api na upajāyante pralaye na vyathanti cha. Very, very important point here. So let's go to the next slide where I bring out that point. Sarge api na upajāyante. That na upajāyante, when we talk about that word, what it means is that one is not born. Na upajāyante. Jayate means to take birth. Na upajāyante means not born. But at what time? What's the context of this not born is sarge api. At the time of universal creation. Universal creation, what does that mean? It simply means creation of the universe. Okay, there's no universal creation in the context of our environment. We live in the universe. That's the maximum material access that we have as jivas. Today, science does not. It can't even go beyond the moon. You know, we are trying to go to Mars. Maybe in the next, if Elon Musk, if he doesn't fall further from grace and, you know, stays on his scientific course, maybe he'll take us to Mars. And who knows when we will go beyond the solar system. Of course, we have sent the Voyager, but, you know, we have no access as humans. And then universe is a, you know, even Star Wars was limited to the galaxy only. It was one galaxy. It wasn't intergalactic. So anyway, I'm just joking here. So universe is the maximum that materially a human can reach in the material body. And at the time of creation of the universe, one is not born. That's what it means. And this has certain significance. I'll talk about it. Sarge api na upajāyante, pralaye na vyathanti te. And at the time of pralaya, one does not, now you can say die, but one does not die. We know that. So vyathanti te means koi vyatha nahi hoti. Vyatha means no disturbance or no misery or suffering. So at the time of pralaya, there is no vyathanti cha. There is no suffering, there is no disturbance, etc. Okay, so the translation here is, and then we'll unpack this second verse. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, idam jnanam upashritya, in this knowledge. Which knowledge? That has been discussed so far and which will be discussed again, which is which will be revealed in the end, is no different from what has been discussed so far. So it's the same. One can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Mama sadharmyam agata. And I explained a different meaning of sadharmyam as well, connecting it to 1866. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So let's unpack this a little bit more. So we understand already from chapter 2, na jayate. So a soul or a atma is never, a jiva is never born and never dies. That we understand. And chapter 2 very clearly says that dehino asmin yatha dehe and all that. Tatha dehantara praptir. And even at the time of death, one takes just another body, just like one changes clothes. So there are two meanings in this verse of birth and death, or that the jiva never takes birth or dies. Okay, now we know people die all around us. We see people dying, our loved ones, or soldiers in war, and so on. So that is the death of the body, bodily death. So that has been covered already in chapter 2. So that's the normal meaning of birth and death of the body. There is a deeper meaning of the birth and death here, that the soul is not or does not take birth or is not born or dies even in that kind of death. What kind of death? The birth and death of the entire universe. Okay, so even the universe is born and dies. Even modern science says that. Okay, the beginning of the universe, of course, all those theories are challenged or are subject to challenge. Big Bang theory and the big what's that called? Expansion, and then the big crunch. So it started off with a point and a big bang, and it's the big inflation. Yes, the inflation theory. What's that? Mr. Alan Guth. And then the big crunch, and then the annihilation of the universe back into a point. So all those physics theories also exist. So the universe also is born and dies, but that's the deeper birth and death referred to here. Sarge and Sarga and Pralaya. It's the birth and death of the whole universe. And what is being said here is that the jiva is not affected even during that birth and death of the universe. And of course, the body has to die if there is no universe. I cover this point in a future, right here actually, that you cannot have a body without a universe. The universe is the fundamental sphere, and the Sanskrit for universe in the Shastra is Brahmand. So anyway, so within a universe, only can a jiva exist. That gives the sphere or the framework of existence to a jiva. So a jiva cannot have a material body without the presence of a universe. The universe provides the three gunas. The three gunas exist within this material universe and allow us to have a body, allow the jiva to take on a body, and then the jiva can, interact in this universe, can play around, can cause a mess, or can live a higher purposeful state of living and whatnot. So the point is that to to come into existence in a body, you need a universe. And when there is no universe at the time of pralaya, what happens? And we'll see that in just a second. That one enters into the body of Vishnu at the time of universal destruction or pralaya. That is the pralaya that is referred to in the second verse. Pralaye na vyathanti cha. So the jiva enters into the body of Vishnu at the time of universal. Universal destruction means destruction of the universe, as simple as that. And then one again enters into a new universe at the time of universal creation, or at the time of creation of another universe. So one enters back, and then one enters back again, or comes back again into a universe. And then, so if you remember how the jiva enters into universe, how it, that is one aspect of chapter 14 that's covered in the first two verses. Okay. So Rajvidya Prabhu has this question, mad-bhāvaṁ. So 8.5. What is 8.5? Antakale cha mameva smaranamuktva kalevaram. Antakale cha mameva smaranamuktva kalevaram.
Yah prayati.
Prayati sa mad-bhāvaṁ. Na asti atra samshayah. I'm missing a word.
Nasti atra samshayah.
Samshayah. So mad-bhāvaṁ. Yah prayati sa mad-bhāvaṁ. And then here, mam sadharmya. So they are similar. They are similar. So the question is, are they similar or same or different? So they are similar. Nice observation. And this is a good study of Bhagavad Gita. We try to connect various parts of Bhagavad Gita because Lord Krishna is consistent in what he is saying. So he's saying something here and here. We should try to analyze and understand, is that referring to the same thing or different, and ask those who have done a deeper study to clarify our understanding. And that's the process of churning the Bhagavad Gita. So very nice. Thank you. All right. So that's 14.1 and 2. So then the third verse, how do the jivas come into the next level of detail, into existence? So the third verse is, again, please pay attention. I'm going a little deeper into this chapter. It's very interesting. There's a lot of sort of confluence with science and our understanding and so on. So, third verse, how does the jiva come into existence? Mama yonir mahad brahma tasmin garbham dadhamyaham sambhavaha, very important word, sambhavaha sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. So mama yonir mahad brahma. So first we have to understand that yeah. One second. Okay. So, mama yonir mahat brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham. So this mahad, this mahad is being called as the yoni. Yoni means womb, which is typically, referring to a female. How a child is born, we all know, the union of a male and a female. And here, this material word, or this Mahat Brahma, is the material word. this use of Brahman has 4 different connotations. If you look in the glossary of the Bhagavad Gita, you will find it. And Brahman not only refers to that spiritual realm beyond the material world, that's one understanding or one meaning. Contextually, there is another meaning which refers to the entire material existence, is also called Brahman. And that is the context. It's probably the only place in Bhagavad Gita where that context is used here. So, Mahad Brahma, the great material nature, Yoni is the female, is the womb, and Tasmin Garbham Dadhamyaham, in that Garbha, in that womb, I impregnate, Dadhamyaham, Aham Dadhami, I impregnate it with my seed. And what happens? And so that impregnation with the seed means those jivas which were residing in the body of Vishnu in the time of Pralaya, at the time of destruction, when the universe had been destroyed, the jivas enter into the body of Vishnu, and then Vishnu injects them back into another universe. And the process is just like how the jivas, you can say, are born. They are not born. That has already been said, that they don't die at the time of universal destruction or pralaya, and neither are they born at the time of sarga or universal or creation of the universe. But here it is being said they are simply injected back into the universe, and then they come back into the body of Vishnu at the time of destruction. All right. So that is what is being said. And sambhava sarvabhutanan tato bhavati bharata. So sambhava bhavati, and this is how sambhav, what is sambhav? Possible. So what does it mean possible? The jiva becomes possible. That doesn't make sense. What does that mean? What it means is that the jiva becomes active, which means it becomes possible for the jiva to quote unquote exist. Exist means become active. How do you exist? I mean, in just common layman terms, a person in a coma, it's hard to argue whether he exists or not. Somebody can say he's as good as dead. He's a vegetable. He's on life support. So if you think about it that way, he's not active. We almost consider him dead, like a vegetable, we say, right? Medically. In the same concept or same thinking or the same way of looking at it, the jiva becomes possible. Sambhavaha bhavati sarvabhutanam means they become active, or they can perform action, and they are not dormant. This word is used, dormant, in 8th chapter, that they become dormant in the body of Vishnu, just like in a coma, like a vegetable state, no action. So they become active when they come into the universe, when they are injected by Lord Vishnu, just like a father. So he is the father, and who is the mother? Prakriti is the mother. So that is why one of the other point was, how does the jiva enter into the material world? This is how the jiva enters into the material world. And then Lord Krishna says, I impregnate that womb. We already discussed that. Tasmin garbham dadamyaham, dadami ham. So Krishna is the father, and material nature, or this Mahad Brahma or Prakriti, is the mother. And then the jiva stays in the mother. The father disappears. After impregnating, the father his job is done. The jiva then lives in the domain of the Prakriti, just like the jiva lives in the womb of the mother. So that is 14.3, and then we'll go to 14.4, and then we'll come back. Both of these form a pair, 14.3 and 4. 1 and 2 form a pair. 3 and 4 form a pair. So 14.4, another. So this beginning 4 verses are very insightful, very, very insightful. Therefore, I'm going over it a little slowly. All right. Because there's a lot to unpack in just these 4 verses of Bhagavad Gita. So we covered all the lines of 3. Mama yonir mahad brahma, prakriti, and it's also Krishna's. It belongs to Krishna. Mama, that word is also important. Prakriti is energy of Krishna. It's not some other entity. So Prakriti is the mother, and Aham, Krishna, is the father, and he impregnates the mother and makes possible, Sambhavaha, makes possible, or brings into, in other words, brings into action, Sarva Bhutanam, all the living entities, Tato Bhavati Bharata. All right. Then the 4th verse. Sarva yonishu kaunteya murtayah sambhavanti yah tasam brahma mahadyonir aham bija pradah pita. So the translation is by Srila Prabhupada, it should be understood that all the species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. So again, the word sambhavanti is coming here. So sarva yonishu kaunteya. So sarva yonishu. So yoni means womb. But why is Krishna saying sarva yonishu? It's a plural. So it doesn't mean all the yonis, all the, it means different types of yonis, different types of wombs, means various different species. And how we understand that further? Kaunteya, my dear Arjuna. Murtayaha. Murti means what? Form. So sarva yonishu murtayaha. The various forms of the yonis, which means the various forms of the wombs. Sambhavantiyah. So the sambhavanti was applied in the previous verse to the jivas, isn't it? Sambhavaha sarva bhutanam. So sarva bhutanam is the jivas. So they become possible, or they come into existence into different forms, in different types of wombs within material nature. So a cat cannot be born from a dog's womb, a female dog's womb. Okay. Only a dog can be born from a female dog's womb. So there is this concept of murtayaha, or species. Sambhavantiya. So they become possible means when that baby dog will come out, puppy will come out, he'll behave like a dog. He'll do bomo. He will not do meow meow. Okay. So he'll behave like a dog. So he'll act, or his activities will be like that of a dog. Okay. And there's a very important concept here, which is that if you read the last 2 lines of 14.4, all of you have the book. Yeah, you must. Otherwise, half of your endeavor of reading Bhagavad Gita here will be lost. So, I mean, you don't have to have this particular physical book if you have the, you can have it on your computer, on Vedabase, wherever, but you must have it in front of you. So the last 2 lines is a very important concept here, very important. So Srila Prabhupada writes in 14.4, I'm reading the last 2 lines. All these appearances are due to the mother material nature. All these appearances means all these species that appear. A puppy appears, baby dog. A kitten appears, baby cat. A human being baby appears, little boy or girl. So all these appearances are due to the mother, or due to the type of womb, material nature, and Krishna's seed-giving process. And here is the important line. The purport is that the material world is impregnated with living entities. So the material world is impregnated at the time of creation with living entities who come out. So it doesn't mean that babies are born out of, vacuum. The meaning is the living entities are impregnated into the material world, which then go from, a father of a particular species to the mother of that species, and then they take birth in a particular body, who come out in various forms at the time of creation. Here is the last 5 important words: according to their past deeds. So what it is to be understood here from this verse: sarva yonishu kaunteya murtayah sambhavantiyah, that they take birth in different types of wombs and acquire a different type of murti or a body. Now you might question, hey, a dog may question, hey, why did I get born as a dog and this other fellow got born as a human, and he gets to be my master and I have to wag my tail all the time in front of him? Why is he not a dog and I am a human? Why does he have to tie me with a chain? Why cannot I tie him with a chain and take him for a walk? A dog may think like that. So it's not just chance. It's because of one's past karma. And that's what Srila Prabhupada, according to their past deeds. And what this means is that at the time of universal destruction, which means at the time of destruction of the universe, and then at the time of Sarga, or further creation, when one is injected back into the universe, the karma stays. Okay? So it's not that you get a free ticket to, wipe off all your karma at the time of Pralaya. You carry your karma back into the new universe and you get a particular type of body based on your past deeds, which is written right here, that you get a particular type of body. Sarva yonishu kaunteya murtayah sambhavantiyah. And how this process happens: tasam brahma mahadyonir aham bija pradah pita. So tasam brahma, again this brahma is being referred to here as the material nature. O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature. Tasam brahma mahadyonir aham bija pradah pita, and I am the seed giving father. So for a puppy, you may think there's a female dog and a male dog, and the male dog is the seed giving father for the puppy. No, that may be the, our limited view, how a small puppy is born. But why did a jiva get into that, the seed of the male dog, not a male cat or a male human or a male tiger? Why only a male dog? Because of his past karma. And who put it in the seed of the male dog? Bhagawan. Based on his past karma. Or Bhagawan or his agents like Yamaraj, Dharmaraj, and so on. His whole ministry, the administration, put that living entity into a particular yoni. In this sense, father and mother are kind of the same. Goes into the seed-giving potency of the father and then goes into the female actual womb of a particular mother, and then the baby is born in a particular species, in a particular murti, in a particular form. And who does that? Aham bija pradah pita. This is a very important line of the 4th verse. Aham bija pradah pita. I put that jiva into that yoni, essentially, into a specific type of yoni, into a specific type of womb, so that he takes a particular form and then goes about with his activity, becomes active and does whatever he needs to do, bho or meow meow or whatever he needs to do. All right. So that is how a jiva enters into that particular body. Now, another twist I want to give on this, just quickly, I won't spend. So let's see, I didn't advance the slides. I'm sorry. So various species become possible. Sarva yonishu sambhavanti. Sarva yonishu kaunteya murtayaha sambhavanti. So sambhavanti in the various bodily forms. Murtayaha. And how do they become possible? By Krishna as the seed-giving father and Prakriti as the mother. That combination, who is making it possible? Krishna is ultimately making that possible. He is the one who puts the jiva in that situation so that that male dog and the female dog, at that time unite, and that specific jiva becomes that puppy. That is Krishna's doing, Bhagawan's doing. Aham bija pratah pita. So aham bija pradah pita also is that so that living entity, please understand that living entity is being given a specific form, okay, based on his karma. Now, karma is of all different types. It comes in, gahana karmano gatihi, 4.17. It's always been complex and it will continue to be complex. That means you need all kinds of species for all kinds of situations, for all kinds of karmic baggage that a living entity has. You need the whole spectrum of, you can say boxes. Amazon has all kinds of boxes to pack various kinds of things, right? So Bhagwan also needs all these kinds of boxes to pack all these living entities because they are carrying different karma. And aham bija pradah pita, and he decides right at that moment that, oh, you go here, you go there, you go there, you go there. That means that entire gamut of species need to be available at all times. And from a science perspective, this chapter is a little bit sort of has more confluence or more sort of things to speak on science. That's why I'm saying is pretty much the most direct refutation of Darwinism or evolution. Evolution says that, let's say whatever, or whatever, 100 million years ago, there were no mammals. Don't catch me on the timeline. I'm not an expert, but at some point there was only aquatic life. There were no dogs. Now, if at that time, 500 million or 200 million years ago, if Krishna wanted to put somebody into the body of a dog, are we saying that he did not have that option? No. So all options were available at all times. And so this is our Bhagavad Gita and Vedic science does not sort of believe in Darwinism. And even in science, Darwinism is, that's a little cartoon picture of Darwinism, but is on very shaky grounds. Okay. So if you want to discuss more, we can do that, but there are just too many problems with that scientific theory. There is some experiments which have shown some tiny correlation, but the rest of it is just a very, very, very far out extrapolation. Okay. And the margin of error just becomes almost, several standard deviations away from reality. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah. Okay. Let's keep going. Yeah. So yeah. And therefore in Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to read more about it, there's a wonderful book written by two very, very nice devotees, Sadaputa Prabhu, whose legal name is Richard L. Thompson, and Drutakarma Prabhu, whose legal name is Michael Cremo. Sadaputa Prabhu is no more, and Drutakarma Prabhu still lives in Los Angeles. He is very, very old, 85 or something, still very active. These two devotees authored this book called Forbidden Archaeology. So if you want to study more about how Darwinism itself is on very shaky grounds, you should study that book, and it's very thoroughly researched and so on. And there's this whole concept called intelligent design, which is like in science circles very much opposite to Darwinism or evolution. So intelligent design means Krishna created all these life forms in the beginning. An intelligent person, Krishna is intelligent, like the most intelligent. He created all these life forms in the beginning so that he can, give a jiva any kind of life form that he wants based on his karma. So that's intelligent design. Okay, so what is the summary? So that's up to the 4th verse. So let's summarize what we have covered till the 4th verse. Yeah. So we covered how the jivas enter this material world, right? And when we are talking about entry, it is at the time of creation of a universe. Okay. You can't say, just for completion, you can't say when was the time when he first entered into any universe. What was the first universe he entered into? Or how did he enter? That question is off the table because of anadi, beginningless. It's beginningless. It's completely no beginning. Okay. And that's a hard concept to get. And just for, again, sake of completeness, I'll repeat. Beginningless, the best way that I have understood the word beginningless is this cup right here. When did it come into being? Make a guess. Ram, can you unmute?
Yeah, maybe like 1 year.
1 year ago. So let's say 2024. Now, so in 2023, was this cup existing? Can you stay on? In 2022, was this cup existing?
No.
Its raw ingredients might have existed. It's a ceramic cup. So maybe the sand or whatever else. But this cup in its form, was it existing in 2020?
No.
Was it existing in the year 2000?
No.
Was it existing in 1900?
No.
When did its non-existence begin?
Never.
Never?
Like always.
Always, yeah. So always, it was before 2024, assuming this cup came into existence in 2024, before that it was non-existent. And we went through some timelines. It was non-existent in 2020 and 2010 and so on. You keep going far back, far back. When did its non-existence begin? That's like, that's called beginningless. That when did its non-existence begin is beginningless. That exactly is anadi. And it's a hard concept, as hard as it is to understand infinity in mathematics. Beginningless on the other side. Infinity can mean on this side, where does it end or something, but beginning. So that's anadi. So that there's nothing like when did the jiva first enter into the universe, but we understood from this chapter how the jiva enters into a universe, a material world. at any point of one's journey through the material worlds. We also understood how it enters into different bodies based on its karma and so on. And then the journey continues, not begins, because begin would mean like begin, there's no beginning. So then the journey continues. Okay. And the journey is characterized by the interaction of jiva and the material nature. So the jiva is impregnated into the material nature by Krishna. So he's thrown into the material nature, he's impregnated. Now, when one is thrown in or injected, these are the words that are used, right? There's got to be interaction. I think I have a, no, not in this one, but in a future slide, it's like, if I throw somebody into a swimming pool, okay, you've got to interact with water. There's no way you can not interact with water. So when the jiva is injected into the material world, he must interact with the material world. Okay. And that interaction, now here I've said that, could be entanglement, gets more and more and more entangled, or cut the entanglement. One can come out by his own volition, not just because, the swimming pool was like, for cleaning, they just, drained off all the water by your own. So if you know swimming, you can come out, you can go to the side and come out. Otherwise, you got to stay in and you'll continue to drown and, or keep flapping your arms and legs. So you're interacting with the material world once you have been injected. And then we continue. Yeah. So that's the summary that we covered so far. Okay. So how one is injected and how one then must interact. Now, we have also covered in past many sessions how we come out. Now, since all of us, here are many are devotees from many years and all, and we have been being told how to come out by the process of bhakti, isn't it? So we will use that knot examples, not as in K-N-O-T example that I gave earlier, that to untie the knot, it's nice to know how you tied it. And with that knowledge, maybe you can untie it. But this process can work the other way also. If you know how to untie a knot, it gives you information as to how you might have tied it. And we have been told so much in our devotional or spiritual lives, many of you have been in it for many years, how to untie the knot. So what are the stages of bhakti? Through bhakti, how do we untie it? Which starts with Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, and Prema. We have all heard this. It's 9 steps. Before that, by the way, there are 2 more steps. The first is Sadhu Sangha, and then there is Shravana. Okay, so there are actually more than 9 steps. First, it starts with Sadhu Sangha, and then Shravana in the association of those sadhus, and then Shraddha develops. That, okay, it makes some sense. This process of bhakti makes some sense. Let me try it out. That Shraddha, that conviction to try out bhakti comes. And then one does Bhajan Kriya, actually tries it out. And when tries it out and goes through that process of fixing oneself, Anartha Nivritti and all, one comes to the firm state of Nishtha, correct? Let's just apply how we got tied. Now, this is not in the Bhagavad Gita, but I'm giving you this understanding. How we got, so this is the process of disentangling or unentangling one's self, correct? exact same is applied to how we got entangled. Okay. So the first step in bhakti was sadhu sangha. Somehow or the other. Let's not worry about that. Somehow or the other. And in Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is called yadrichaya. Somehow or the other. Similarly, somehow or the other, we are in material nature. Again, beginningless, anadi. Okay. As a joke, you can say anything that cannot be explained, just say anadi. So, let's not get into when was the first time we came, but we are here in the material world. Just like one gets into association with devotees, there is sangha, not sadhu sangha, but prakriti sangha. Right? And we just read all about prakriti sangha, how that sangha happened. Krishna injected us. That's a middle snapshot, not the first. There is no first snapshot, by the way. Krishna injected us into the material world. In this specific material world. That is our sangha with prakriti. Somehow or the other, we are here. That's it. Then there is shravana, which means in that sense, exploration. What seems nice? What looks nice? What should I try out? It's like, you want to have dinner and you are in what you call a food court on the airport. And then you look at various, outlets. You look at the menus and, all that. And you say, hey, what do I want to try out? That is shravana. You're reading all the menus. And then there is shraddha. You get stuck onto one of them. Let me try this one out. So here the jiva is going through this process. What seems nice? What seems nice? What seems nice? And of course, there is past conditioning. So, for example, I am vegetarian. So yeah, I have that, one can say, even it's not, let's say, because of devotee, but even before that, I was vegetarian. And, some people have certain tastes. So you only look at those options. The other options are automatically ruled out in the beginning. So this is that whole process of shortlisting, shraddha. What seems nice? And then you fix on one. I want to try this out. And bhajan kriya. Now, this is not bhajan of Bhagawan. This is bhajan of Vishaya or prakriti, the sense object. I want to try this thing out. So you try it out. And then you begin to get conditioned. It's not anartha nivritti, it's anartha privritti that happens. Right? The reverse. You become more and more. Anartha nivritti means how to become removed from the anarthas. You're getting more and more sucked into, I love this, I like this. Oh man, chicken sandwiches are like the best thing on earth. And then nishtha. You become really fixed and entangled. So that process works in that way. And similarly, you have to de-entangle yourself slowly. So this was an extension to the first 4 verses, but we discussed how we entered into the material world, how we interact with the material world, and how we get more and more and more entangled in the material world. And then we go through our journey, the continuation of our journey, where we go and take more and more and more types of bodies based on our past conditioning and karma. All right. So that's what, is going on at this point of time. So this is the jiva's journey through the universe. Now we get into the real or the main subject matter. What is this universe? What is it made of? And this universe is made up of the 3 we can say fundamental particles, as we said in the beginning, or the three fundamental constituents. And what are they? Fifth verse. The first line itself begins there. Sattvam rajas tamaiti guna prakriti sambhavah. Our favorite word comes. Nibadhnanti mahabaho. Nibadhnanti. Entangled. Bandh gaya hai. Bandh. Bandhna. Bandh. This same thing. Bind. English also has the word bind. It's coming from the same Sanskrit root. Bandha. Nibandha. Nibandha means really tied. Like tied hard. So Nibadhnanti Mahabaho, my dear Arjuna, Dehe Dehinam Avyayam, Dehe Dehinam, Dehina, who is Dehina? The Jiva, Dehino Asmin Yatha Dehe, same thing. So Dehi, Dehi means the resident, and Deha is the residence. So resident lives in the residence. Dehi lives in Deha. So Dehe Dehinam Avyayam. Like this, eternally Avyayam. Eternally one has been living. So, translation, fifth verse. Material nature consists of three modes. Sattvam, Rajas, and Tama. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So that is the fifth verse. So let's unpack the fifth verse. So this material world is made up of these three modes. Sattvam, Rajas, Tama, Iti. Iti means these ones. So these are the three names. Gunaha, Prakriti, Sambhavaha. So Sambhavaha means these make the Prakriti possible, or this gives what Prakriti its characteristics. So these are the Prakriti, as we say, is the macro. We can say universe. What is universe made of? If you ask a particle physicist, what answer you will get? What is the universe made of? Protons, electrons, neutrons. Or if he is that's the answer you will get from a nuclear physicist. If you ask a theoretical physicist, he will say standard model. If you ask a string theorist, he will say all kinds of strings, loops, and open-ended and closed-ended. And if you ask a Vedantist, he will say Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Okay, so they are all, they are all in that same sort of mood or in the same manner. Okay, so Sattvam, Rajas, Tama iti gunaha prakriti sambhava. These are the building blocks. And gunaha is used here. If you see the Sanskrit word to word by Prabhupada, it is qualities, which means which gives its color, quality. And you will see there's a relevance to color coming in soon. Quality, but also the hidden meaning is rope, which bind. And that is where that word Nibadhnanti Mahabaho, Dehe Dehinam. And these gunas are the ones that bind the Deha to the Dehi. Dehi to the Deha. Avyayam, eternally, it has been bound. Okay. So Nibadhnanti, one is bound into the Deha, into this. And Deha is the material body, but it also means the entire the material creation, the universe. So one remains bound in the universe. So Sattvam, Rajas, Tama iti guna prakriti sambhava. And then the living entity automatically gets conditioned. Nibadhnanti mahabaho. It gets conditioned, it gets bound. And it's got to get bound. It's got to, because like I said, it's injected. So it stays bound there. Just like in the swimming pool, is it possible to not be wet? Ram, I'm picking on you because I know you.
No.
Hmm?
You will be wet.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Absolutely sure.
Unless you are like, if the analogy here might be, if you're like a pure devotee, you are wearing like a full protection suit against the material world, but
Well, the suit will get wet. You inside the suit may not get wet, but
yeah, so you were asking about you.
okay.
But for
Mataji,
most people,
go
like
ahead.
myself, I'm definitely gonna get wet.
All right. Yeah, you're on the right track. So Shamlila Mataji, you wanted to say something? I know you might have something useful to say.
No, Prabhuji, it was similar to what Prabhuji was saying, that if you have like a suit, but then also like you had, it's not about a pool, but you had given an example of the leaf of the lotus where like it just
Yes,
rolls off.
perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say. And that's exactly what is written here. So, very nice. Thank you. So that's how you must understand Bhagavad Gita. Even if though you're in chapter 14, you should be able to connect it to chapter 5. Okay, so all these connections should go on in your mind. So that's very nice. 5.10. Okay, so where Lord Krishna gives the example of a lotus petal. So the thing is, so let me again build that point. Guna also means rope. Rope is what? What's a rope used for? To bind, to tie. Okay, that's a rope. And what is the law here? So we said to define or to really understand anything physical, you must understand two things. Its fundamental particles, and this applies to physics, and the laws which govern it, right? Like you understand the standard model, and the laws that govern it are the quantum theory laws. So when you understand both of that, you can say you understand matter, whatever, right? Or you understand the laws of nuclear physics, and you understand the nuclear particles or whatever. So the law here is that these are ropes. And as soon as you choose to engage with the rope, it will catch you. It's like a noose. You understand a noose? Like in a rope, you make a noose. You might have seen in movies, when a thief or somebody is trying to, cross into a building or climb a wall. He throws a rope and it goes around and, goes into something, and then he pulls it and it becomes tight, right? And then he's able to climb up the rope. So that's the noose. Just by pulling it, it tightens. Simply, you don't have to pull it from both sides. Just by pulling it, and sometimes by gravity, it tightens simply. So that's the law of the rope. The rope is the fundamental particle here, or the gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. The moment you engage with it, it clasps you. That's the law. That's the law of how the fundamental particle works. So we discussed the fundamental particle, and we discussed the law. If you choose to engage with it, and engage you must, which means everybody is within the grasp of the gunas. Are there exceptions? Yes. And two types of exceptions. One is samadhi, that you stop engaging completely. You choose to not engage. Now we are going back to 4th and 5th chapters. The process of sacrifice is the process of disengagement. That is sacrifice. And what is the limit of disengagement? Samadhi. No engagement, not even breathing. Even breathing is engagement. So you completely disengage, become a vegetable, so to say. Go back to that state where you're in the body of Vishnu, so to say. No engagement. It's either that or engagement without entanglement. And that is the example of a lotus petal, how its engagement with water. You take a lotus petal, you dip it in water and take it out. It has no covering. It's not that you have covered it in plastic or in a Ziploc bag and then you dip it. No. The property of the leaf itself is that if you dip it in water and bring it out, you will not see any water on it. One of the rare things in nature that does not interact with water. As an example, I'm sure if you look at it with the microscope, you will say, oh, I can see molecule of H2O. We're talking about a concept or an analogy here, okay? So, like a lotus interacts with or does not interact with water. So that is how, but that's only for, those who have attained such a high state. So this is, that's the cartoon of, engagement with water. So no embodied being, pretty much. No means like maybe a few exceptions that we talked about. Except for that, nobody can escape the material conditioning. So that is 14.5. But there are 3 modes, right? So let's go a little further, build out this concept of the 3 modes a little bit more. And I will read only the English for the next few verses because now we'll go faster. We have 10 minutes left, so we'll keep going. Mode of goodness. So 14.6. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat. We'll read just the prakashakam anamayam. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So mode of goodness, this is Sattva guna. It's the purest mode. Okay, it's anamayam. Anamayam means it's completely pure. And sukha sangena badhnati. Okay, so it binds one to happiness. It's still binding. I think somewhere in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, it's like being bound with a gold chain. You can be happy in prison that, hey, you know what? I got a gold chain. The other guy has an iron chain. But you're still bound. You're still in prison. So binds one to happiness. What it means is that it's much better than being in the mode of tamas or rajas. But it is still binding at least to a good thing, which is to sukha, which means that one becomes conditioned. One becomes always looking to be happy. And here happiness means which kind of happiness? The long-term happiness, the real happiness, which gives long-term nectar. Again, remember 18.37 and 38. One becomes attracted to that kind of happiness and is always on the path of obtaining such happiness, which means he leads a regulated life. And that's what is meant here, that it's very pure and very illuminating. So one becomes conditioned, or one becomes used to. One becomes so it becomes his second nature. I want to be happy. And one avoids all sources that will give him or that will take away his long-term happiness. And he clearly understands what is in my long-term happiness needs, or what will give me long-term happiness and what will not. But he wants that material long-term happiness. The important word is material long-term happiness. Whatever that is, he tries to always pursue that. But it is also binding, because one is very, very, very attached to being materially happy. Now, it does not mean being attached to material richness, wealth. Go ask the wealthy people. 99% of the most wealthy people are not internally happy. When we talk about this happiness, it means real internal but material happiness. Wealthy people suffer from all kinds of diseases, blood pressure, hypertension, which is the same thing, and depression, and so many. You saw, all these famous ultra rich people, they die very violent deaths, either drug overdose or car accidents or suicides, and so on. All these famous people, or they are always very sad internally. So it's not about wealth, but it's about those who are materially internally happy. And if you want to, and also, so if you the way to test, or the way to tickle such a person, if you want to test his bindingness, how he's bound, it doesn't mean he's free from material, from matter. Go tickle the source of his happiness. He'll become very angry immediately. Try to cut the flow of oxygen of his happiness. So one of the oxygen tubes, the sources, the key lifeline, as you can think, of happiness for a person is the pride of being happy. I am happy. Tell him, no, you're not happy enough. Or, hey, you know what? You did that or that the other day. You could have done better. Immediately, the reaction could be, oh, really? You try being as sincere as I have been. Then you get to say to me what's good and what's bad. A sort of a defensive response or something like that may evoke. Now, if one is really, 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 really calm in his character, in his behavior, that means he is very close to approaching that guna ateeta. He is almost on the boundary of material happiness, the highest material happiness, from where one can just, then the boundary is there, and then there is spiritual happiness, the guna ateeta. So, but to the degree that one does not get perturbed or disturbed in his happiness by any material situations, to that degree he is advancing within the mode of sattva. Okay. In each of these three modes, now these are not three broad modes. In sattva also there is, like, in, like, when you get grades in school, A, B, C. But within A also there is A plus, A and A minus, B plus, B and B minus, right? Like that. Many schools give grades like that. So all A's are not equal. A plus is better than A minus. Similarly, within sattva also there are further categorization of sattva, rajas and tamas. Like north, northeast, north, northwest, little bit, not perfect north, but little this side or that side, almost north. So like that, sattva is the highest. Rajasic sattva may be lower. Again, so there are like this, you can keep subdividing. So there is a whole spectrum. So this is sattva guna. Next is mode of passion, rajo guna, and that is 14.7. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti. And because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. So the origin of this is desires and longings. In the first case, what was the origin? The quest to long-term happiness. In this case, the motivator to develop this mode or be in this mode is to acquire things, fulfill one's material desires, accomplishments, material accomplishments that are different from simply being happy. Something that I think, so this is in the short-term happiness category. Always looking for short-term happiness. And therefore, he works hard. So by legal means, and there's a very fine line between what's legal and what's illegal, but one works very hard for such results. So you can say Rajas is result-orientedness. Short-term result-orientedness. And again, short-term is relative. Elon Musk, I don't know about his thing or whatever, but looks like from an external, very, very, very in the mode of passion. He says that, oh, I work 18 hours, I sleep in the factory itself. My bedroom or my little bed was in my factory, Tesla factory. And the moment I wake up, I start working. So very, very result-oriented, extreme passion. I must get this result. So like that is mode of passion. And we'll stop at the next one, bound to which leads to, and these desires never end. Okay, I have made Tesla successful. Now I have to go do SpaceX. Now I have to go do this, one after the other. There's no limit, there's no end. And the reactions, and there's a very fine line. Usually you stay legal or you don't commit sinful activities, but because this burning desire is there, always intense desire, then at a certain point it becomes by hook or by crook. जो घी, what's that? सीधी उंगली से नहीं निकलता, उसको टेढ़ी उंगली से निकालना है. There's a saying in Hindi, not translatable, but when ghee cannot be taken out with a straight finger, then you have to bend your finger to take out the ghee from the jar, so to say, or take out the butter from the jar. Which means if things don't work in the pious mode or the truthful mode, then it's okay to lie. It's okay to commit sinful activities. The end justifies the means. And then you begin to go down a slippery slope of sinful activities due to that passion of result-orientedness, which is almost, it's like greed. Then all that matters is the result and you forget the means. And then 14.8. Tamas. O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness born into ignorance is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. So, the idea here is that there is no desire to do any good. In the first two, the first one was long-term happiness or good. The second was short-term happiness. Again, relative short-term happiness. And very quickly it devolves into shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And you keep adopting shortcuts and shortcuts and shortcuts. And finally, the shortcuts become illegal or crime or criminal and sinful. So, but still, there is a desire for some kind of happiness. In tamas, generally, there is no desire for any happiness. One is completely distant from happiness. One derives happiness in distress, does filthy things, completely filthy. So by broad standards, one is committing self or inflicting self-harm. So madness, indolence, which means these are all things where you've basically gone crazy. You've lost your mind. And one goes deeply into, then one enjoys hurting others, harming others. At a certain point, there is no even self-enjoyment. It becomes muscle memory to simply inflict damage on one's own self and to others. So that is tamas, almost like you can say demoniac, like demons mentality. And there are many people like that. We'll stop there and we'll continue from 14.9 next time. We took a long time to discuss the first 4 verses, which was very important because a lot is packed into the first 4 verses. Thank you for staying a little bit over. Any questions?
Prabhuji, I have a question. So our desires, where do they stem from? Are they, some of them stem from our conditioning and some of them just
All our
because we
desires stem from our conditioning.
all?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, remember that process, that one kind of conditioning, so they are derivatives.
So some could be from past lives and some we attain in this life that we
Oh,
will.
absolutely. So when there is conditioning, I mean conditioning that has been accumulating over many, many lives. But then you further deepen the conditioning by looking at adjacencies. You don't go far from your current conditioning.
Got it.
Kind of keep looking at adjacent things and keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Shamlila Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, this
Apart from, just one sec, apart from when there is a conscious effort to completely change direction. Okay, so that is possible. So then one gets external impetus. No, I must completely change direction.
So that's the part where the choice comes in, right? That we have a
Yes,
choice how we wanna enact in the future.
correct. You realize that I have been going, one realizes that I really want to completely change my direction. And it happens in the material sense also, but in the material sense, it happens like the most fundamental direction stays the same. I want to make more money. Today, I was like, okay, I'm doing a job. And I may look for this job or that job and that job. Then suddenly you say, hey, wait a minute, I can make a lot more money if I start my own company. Then one can say, oh, it's a complete change of direction. And some external input came. True. So that's a good material example. But in the spiritual sense, it's the same. It's an adjacency. Because the end goal is, I want to make more money.
More money to have more. Yeah.
Because the idea is that money will give me happiness.
Yes, my happiness.
You're tied to that idea. Originally, maybe you were tied to the idea that I want security. Starting an own company is just too much headache or too much risk, or I may lose all my money. But sometimes then you play a big bet, you put all your investment and you start your own business. So that you give up your attachment to your security, financial security. But for what? Ultimately to make more money. But so if you look at it, the fundamental thing is, at some level, it's an adjacency, even though it may be presented that, oh, it's a very fundamental shift. You have to further analyze and say, hey, that's the adjacency, that it is just the desire to, or whatever. Maybe for some people it may be, I want to become famous, I want to become the next Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or whatever. So you have to analyze that, but it could be in that adjacency. So yes, that conditioning is there.
Okay, thank you.
It can operate at multiple levels. We'll go to Shamlila Mataji because she started asking and I interrupted her.
Ji, Prabhuji, similar to what Mataji was saying right now, but I was also thinking, like in chapter 1, we spoke about how Arjun had all of these attachments to being a good grandchild, or like fear of not doing the sinful things and those things like that. They kind of seem like they're bordering on mode of passion, if not completely over there. And I feel like a lot of us have those same motivations when we kind of like do things or operate in the real world. So how do we kind of like, it seems almost like a trap, because nobody really wants to, I mean, if we want to do the right thing because we want to do it, but that seems like it's almost like mode of passion. So then how do we really get out of that whole thing of, oh, I want to be a good person? Wouldn't that also like be mode of passion that way then?
So is your question like the difference between mode of passion and goodness?
No, it would
Part is that
it
you're bound in both cases, but what really is the crux of your question? That how to
so
get out of mode of goodness, or how is mode of goodness not almost the same as mode of passion, which or something else?
it's kind of the second one, but also like some of our most fundamental kind of like needs, right? That I want to be a good person or whatever. That's one of the fundamental conditioning that most people have. Not for other people to say, "Arey, why you're a good person," but you just want to be a good person. So that seems like it's mode of passion, is it? Like,
I would say that mode of passion, people may not care about being good in that sense, that I want to care about my real long-term goodness. And long-term goodness doesn't just mean the mode of goodness. People are aware of the multiple lifetime journey. Okay, it's not just limited to this life. Just like now, Arjuna was talking all about the next life. Hey, if I commit sinful activities, then I will suffer in my next life. I don't want to accumulate all this sin of killing so many people, and especially my cousins and my family members, because I'll accrue sin for which I have to pay. So they are aware of this multi-lifetime span, and they are attached to being good, to at least to themselves. They care about their long-term happiness, and that is not passion in the sense that they are caring about the things that are moral. There is a moral code, and the moral code as defined by the scriptures. So it's all within the realm of material material happiness, what is known as the dharma. Dharma as defined by the scriptures. This is the dharma of, like a Brahmana dharma. It is given in 18.42. What does it say? Shama, Dama, Tapas, Shaucham, Kshantir, Arjavam, Evacha, Jnanam, Vijnanam, Astikyam, Brahma, Karma, Swabhavajam. So this is the swabhav of a Brahmana who is supposed to be fully in the mode of goodness, and there is nothing spiritual about it. So having no pride, being completely prideless, doing good to others, having no material desire for things or wealth, tolerance, forgiveness. These are not the qualities of somebody in the mode of passion. The mode of passion person, he won't forgive. Elon Musk, if you screw up in a project, he'll fire you in 2 seconds. He won't show forgiveness. That's why you cannot be a Brahman and be a successful CEO. You need that mode of passion where you fire people. If you, the first instance, you don't even give them a second chance. And then you can claim to be all these big, most successful entrepreneurs are the worst people to work with. That's what is said about Steve Jobs. Hardest people to work with. They will call you bad things in public, shame you, and do all of that. And it's not fun to work with such people. And you can't say they're in the mode of goodness.
Right. So sorry. So what I'm understanding is that the desire to be like a good person or avoid sin in and of itself is not mode of passion at all.
Yeah, mode of goodness is given in Bhagavad Gita, and we'll when we go through the 18th, you've been through the 18th chapter. There are various areas of life, and describes what is living in the mode of goodness. For example, in speech, what is mode of goodness? That you say things which are beneficial to the other person, which don't harm or hurt him. You can say Elon Musk may be the most, does he say things which, he look at his Twitter feed, you'll hardly find the verse number 17.15, which is speech in the mode of goodness, how it starts.
There was also that, right, Prabhuji? If you can't do any of that, then keep silent and read the scripture.
Yeah, and he doesn't keep silent either, and he blurts out things, and then he has to delete his posts to kind of, undo his mindless blurting. And so does our government leader also. That they don't think before they talk. So 17.15 does not apply to them, and that is speech in the mode of goodness. Then you can see so many other things in Bhagavad Gita, like charity in the mode of goodness. When you do charity, you do charity without any expectations. And here, we try to do charity to others, and there's always expectation. Charity is not a charity, but it is a investment into future returns without saying it out loud. Oh, today I help you. Expectation is tomorrow you'll help me back, and if you don't, then I'll shame you. I'll arm twist you, or at that time I'll extract 10 times more penalty from you. So you better help me. And hey, yeah, I had made a small investment in the past as a goodwill, but it wasn't an investment unconditionally. It was very much transactional. All this is given in Bhagavad Gita. So that is what it means. We should not confuse the true desire for being materially happy with as a passionate thing. Oh, I'm passionate about being in the mode of goodness. That's just language.
Ji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Sorry, I took up extra time with this.
Examples of what is goodness and passion, and there shouldn't be much doubt about it. All that is coming up in future chapters, as you are well aware.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Sorry, I took up so much time. Thank you so much.
This is great. This is very good. All right, Ram Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So regarding the creation of universe, you said when the universe is created, all the souls, jivas from Vishnu will take birth. Does it mean that all of them come to life, into action as soon as the universe is created, or does it spread across multiple years or centuries or whatever? I mean, how does that work? Is it like immediately, or does it take time? The reason why I'm asking this is, if it is immediately, then maybe like the initial species is like amoeba or something might have got created, and everybody takes a birth as an amoeba, something like that, right? So I'm trying to understand how this thing works.
Short answer, very short answer, I don't know. Okay. And the longer answer is, this is very, very complex. We don't know how the Lord really, all his detailed, how his law works and how he wants to operate or administer or govern the universe and the living entities that live in the universe. So this is a very complex, like what, how many centuries, and this now century, the time factor itself is relative. We know within this universe itself, time flows at different speeds, at different points or geographies within the universe. Within a massive, near a massive object, time flows slowly. At other places, time flows faster, and things like that. So time within a universe, time across universes, multiple universes, and there are multiple of them. It's just we can't even begin to speak about saying that there is some constant centuries or eons or whatever. This is beyond the realm of what the Shastras describe, or maybe some Shastras, some Puranas have. Vayu Purana has a lot of scientific details, and so on. But short answer, I don't know.
That's fine.
It's the concept that I explained, and that is very much on solid grounds based on the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. But these deeper questions that, oh, how many centuries, or how does it really work, or they come in the beginning, and maybe, and that's very true. Maybe that initially Krishna had this set of designs that is there, and for the certain set of living entities that he injected, only a certain types of bodies were needed.
Valuable.
So we see that, oh, if you go back into carbon dating, and I fully believe the science of carbon dating and all that, I don't think that's fake. So maybe, in the fossils that we see of more than 500 million years, we only see amoeba and aquatic bodies. We just don't see the skull of a human from 500 million years ago. Why? Probably because that body was not needed at that point of time. There wasn't, like, you can think of it like, there wasn't like such serial killers that you needed the supermax prison. When that need came, then the government built a supermax prison, but it's not that it evolved. The design existed. It could have built it at any time, or maybe it was built but nobody inhabited it. All this we don't know.
Okay. Sure. No, thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Ishani Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I have some questions about beginning our class. It's like we said about that jiva receives some type of body, and it depends on the karmic reaction. And I think in that moment, our material body can move, for example, from point A to point B. But the soul, our jiva, can we say that the jiva enter some body, or that, I don't know how to explain it, or the jiva have a permanent position somewhere? It's a little bit subtle question, like the jiva have some position in some spiritual world, and that is illusion that the jiva is movable, like a material body. Do you understand my question? Maybe I need to correct the question.
Yeah, I need to better understand, but let me say this, that there is a spiritual body waiting for us in the spiritual world. Okay? There is a spiritual body waiting. Krishna has infinite number of spiritual bodies out there, infinite, literally, and of all types. Infinite number of infinitely many types of spiritual bodies in the spiritual world. through our journey in the material world, and through the process of bhakti, we refine and refine and refine our spiritual practice, our sadhana, to the point where we are able to crystallize our understanding, or our what we call realization of what is our spiritual body. And that is called self-realization. When you say self-realization, you're not Ishani Devi Dasi in this, today's material body as a female and whatever, living in Oregon or wherever. That's just your temporary body. It will be over after a few years. But your spiritual self is that self which through your process of sadhana, you will realize, and there is a sort of like a placeholder sitting in the spiritual world. And when you realize your true self, this is who I am in the spiritual world, and that is known as the process of sadhana. You realize your what is known as your spiritual body or your siddha deha. And through that process of purification, you go into the spiritual world, and you take on that body. And it's a spiritual body, not a material body, and that's the body you take on. So first you realize it while you are in the material world, and then you attain that body in the spiritual world. Does that help?
It's a little bit, yeah, but specifically a jiva, movable, atma, movable, or it stays permanent in some place.
Movable means across what dimensions?
Yeah, like for example, a body. We have a body right now, like physical body, and we sit in a car and go from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
And what about atma? Does atma move is the same way, like from point A, point B, or the atma have a permanent position?
Well, atma is inside your body. So when your body is going from point A to point B, your atma is going in the body.
It's like a material view. If you see on this process like from material view, but if you see it's like from spiritual view, is it movable?
I'm not fully following what.
It's okay. I'm trying to maybe later to ask this question and to formulate it more detail.
She's not saying that, but maybe it is related to that what happens when you die. Does it immediately go into another body? Like, is it always like you, as you explained that while we are living, the body.
You could. My wife is trying to clarify your question that let's say after you die or one dies, a body dies, can the soul take birth, let's say, within 100-mile radius in another body, or 1,000,000 miles, or 1,000,000,000 miles, or 10 trillion miles? So how far can a soul travel to take the next body, so to say? So the answer is it can take birth anywhere in the entire universe. And that process is it. There are different Puranas that I have heard, again, I have not studied, take some time. There is some time between the death of a body and the soul taking birth in another body. And again, within a universe, the time is relative. We have seen that in Srimad Bhagavatam, so many instances. And we also see that in physics. So when you say some time, it's a very relative, but there is a time gap. It's not instantaneous that the soul goes from one body to another. There is some time of gestation, if that was your question. Yeah, and it does not go to the spiritual world in between or into the body of Vishnu. That only happens at the time of pralaya, at the time of destruction, partial destruction of the universe at the end of the day of Brahma, or the complete destruction, which is the end of the life of Brahma.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Archi Mataji, and then we will end.
So, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, my question is again same from the you said at the time of destruction, all jivas, all the universe goes to the body of the Lord. So again, when the universe is recreated or comes into the existence, Bhagawan decides how many souls needs to take rebirth, right?
Yes.
If I'm understanding correctly.
And it's not just one universe at a time. There are trillions and zillions of universes emanating from Mahavishnu's body. So it's not just one. And it's so many universes that are coming out and going in, continuously coming out and going in. The time scales are unimaginable. They're vast. So the Lord, at the time of destruction of a particular universe, the souls enter into Vishnu's body, then they could come out into a different universe. And some of the souls which went in from universe A could come out in universe B, some could come out in universe C, some could stay there, and after some quote unquote time, come out in universe D. All this is very complex, and there's no set of formulas, or I have not seen any such theory written in any Purana or something. It may.
So, yeah, sure. So I was thinking, so I should not mistaken it with some kind of like understanding with the liberation. Some souls get liberation in that time too.
No. If there
Okay.
is karmic baggage left, you cannot get liberation.
Okay. So, but if there is no karmic baggage for any soul, so to say, if
Then you don't need to wait. Then there is no need to wait. The soul doesn't wait for pralaya or that universal destruction to go to the spiritual world. You can go to the spiritual world right after this life.
Okay. So I
Say
have
you
one
live
more.
for another 100 years, I wish, and which will be 21, 25. I'm sure the planet Earth and the sun and everything will still be there at 21, 25. So there is no pralaya happening at that time, but you could go to the spiritual world in 21, 25.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So I have one more question. So when some souls comes into existence again in any yoni, like any dog, cat, or human, whatever it is, they get their mode of material nature according to their past deeds.
They get their mode of material nature. They get their body according to their material nature, according to their past deeds.
Yes, so they get their body according to their past deeds, but th- do and they get their mode of material nature also, right? When they come into existence in the material
What do you
existence,
mean
get
get
the
their
nature.
material nature? They get a particular body which is bound by certain types of material modes. We'll cover this next time. Like cow's body is predominantly in mode of goodness. Even if you beat a cow, which the milkman does many times, the cow doesn't attack generally. Try
Yeah.
beating a tiger that many times. In one time itself, he'll kill you.
Yeah.
So tiger is in the mode of passion. Cow is in the mode of goodness. It will tolerate. Shantir.
Yeah.
Shanti means we saw that cow is very much Brahman-like.
Mm.
Tiger is very much Elon Musk-like. You poke him and he will destroy you with words or actions or whatever. So the type of body is constituted of certain gunas. You get a type of body, and its characteristics are characterized by the gunas. So tiger's body is in the mode of passion, cow's body is in the mode of goodness,
Mm-hmm.
and a snake's body is in the mode of ignorance, it is said. A snake eats its own eggs. which other species you will see where it eats its own egg? Every species tries to protect its eggs. So that's why it is special. It's in the mode of ignorance. So with different bodies comes different types of entanglement in modes. That's the right way to say it.
So their past karma has no link with their present nature. Like suppose if someone was doing some good karmas in their past life, so does that goodness will not carry in this life, and they will no.
It will. So if somebody is in the mode of goodness, now assuming he didn't try to make any spiritual progress, just mode of goodness, very possible that he may get a human body. We don't know. Gahana karmano gatihi, 4.17. We cannot come up, we humans cannot come up with a whole algorithm or flowchart, what is there in Yamaraj's or Bhagawan's mind or in his law book. But generally speaking, such a person in mode of goodness could, let's say, get a cow's body.
So it's not guaranteed, like, okay, if he was a human in the past life and was doing goodness, I mean, all his activities are in goodness, but it's not guaranteed that it will be a human body next life.
No,
Because
definitely,
it's
like punya karma, again, chapter 9, as you accumulate punya karma, you could get even into swarga. What to speak of a human body? Yes, definitely you could get a human body where you would be born with the same kind of conditioning, which means mode of goodness. So cow is just one possibility. Again, we don't know. Maybe there was some bad karma which made him into an animal. But an animal like a cow, not like a snake. And it's too much of what if and this and that. But you could very well become a human very much in the mode of goodness. I don't know examples, maybe like, whoever you consider to be a very, very, mode of goodness person, but not spiritual. I'm trying to think of somebody like that. I don't know, very charitable person or something. Or you could even go to Swarga. That's the ultimate destination for those who commit or who accumulate a lot of punya. All those are possibilities.
Thank you.
But again, the main teaching is that we have to, and from chapter 14, we will see next week. Next week, we will not have a class, or we might have an early class. I don't know. But we will see the main instruction is to get out of the entanglement. The main point in all the slides I was showing is the word bind in blue color. The focus was not that, oh, I want to be in mode of goodness and continue to be in the mode of goodness in the material worlds and universes. The goal is to get out of it. So trying to understand, if I did this, whether I will go into a human body or swarga or cow's body is not interesting. What is interesting is to give it all up and go to spiritual world. That's the focus of Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, there are the Vedas which talk about dharma. There'll be a lot of discussion about how to go into a next body which is favorable. That's what the Vedas talk about. Fruitive activities, sweet fruits, how to get sweet fruits. I have not read any of the Vedas, but they talk about all these fruitive activities. But that's not the focus of Bhagavad Gita. If that's the goal, I'm just saying, if that's the goal of somebody, then he's in the wrong class. He should be in a class of, doing fruitive activities from the Vedas, not in a Bhagavad Gita class. Does that help?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I have one more question, but next time I can ask.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the nice questions. And maybe you all can raise your hands sooner so that, we can have this Q&A. Since nobody was raising hands, I kept going. So then we can end on time also. But thank you for the very nice questions. It's very beneficial. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Panchang
Krishna.
Pranams.
Thank you.